How are we?
I am good. How are you doing?
Can you hear me okay?
I can. Can you hear me well?
I'm doing incredibly well.
Oh,
I can hear you well. We've got audio issues on my end. All of the clips will go out, making sure that you can be heard.
awesome.
But dude, how's the valley?
It's really cool. It's really cool. I've only spent the past 5, 6 days here for now. I only came here again yesterday. But yeah, enjoying it a lot. There's definitely a feeling of speed and kind of energy here. So yeah, enjoying the difference from London. But yeah,
I love it. Awesome. Look, give me some background on you on Bench. I'd love to hear it, and then we can get into the questions. I have so many.
for sure. Awesome. So, in short, then, Bench is building the curse for hardware engineering. So basically, we've seen the impact that LLMs have had on software engineers or consultants or all different kind of areas of professional work. This has not been the case yet for hardware engineering, for people who are building rockets, cars, robots, whatever else, anything physical, basically. And we want to change that. We basically believe that this is the next frontier. We believe that after software is solved, whatever way you wanna call it, more and more founders are going to be gravitating towards hardware, and we want to be the platform on which they build that hardware. Yeah, me personally.
Why is this such an important problem to solve?
If you think about it, all the proper advances we want to make in society, like interplanetary life, solving the climate crisis, speeding up transportation, whatever you wanna think about, these are all hardware problems. They have software components, of course. There's a software component in autonomous vehicles, for example, that's very, very, very important. But in the crux, hardware is what will push society forward. That's our belief.
That's really interesting. The fact that hardware we haven't innovated on hardware, and you're sort of building this cursor for hardware. How did you think about it as why is it so difficult? Is it the fact that there are so many different APIs to connect to hardware? None of it is on a unified platform, and Bench is essentially that.
So just to be clear, I think we've innovated on hardware, but I think we have not innovated on hardware dev tools, if you want to call them that. So software people have got a ton of dev tools, cursors, not cursors, whatever's. But in hardware, we haven't got that many. And I think this is a very complex problem. I think there's a couple of reasons. I think the technology piece is, of course, very obvious. There's many more kind of degrees of freedom, if you want to call it that. There's many more different kind of file types. Working with 3D files, working with simulation files, working with point clouds, with text, with numbers. So the kind of the range of file types and kind of modalities you have to work with is obviously much higher. But then I think maybe even more importantly, the difficulty is that engineering by its natures is hardware engineering, is much more risk averse. So these people are some of them are still scared to post their files into the cloud for fear of IP being leaked, right? When all the other industries or many other industries have moved to cloud years and years before. So I think it's more of a cultural piece and more of a cultural shift almost you have to push forward.
How do you use LLMs inside of Bench?
So we do a couple of things. So LLMs are the basis of our reasoning, right? So we use LLMs to do two things. First of all, to mimic how an engineer thinks of conducting a task. So first of all, what Bench does is it turns a prompt into a workflow that is kind of trying to mimic as closely as possible what an engineer would be doing here manually. So in this step, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're trying to do what the engineer would be doing manually, but just automatically, creating that plan from a prompt. That's one. And the second part is that all the reasoning about the different files and file types are connected to Bench. So basically, we believe that Bench should be able to understand all the same context that an engineer has on a given design or on a given problem in the same way. So it's the second part is reasoning on these modalities and reasoning on these files and giving the agent a deep understanding of the context to actually produce something that's usable and kind of bounded within the confines of that context, basically.
That is incredible. I can't even begin to try and think about how you go about coding something like that. It's not something you can just vibe code together. It's something you need to be deeply technical around,
Yes,
right?
yeah, that's my CTO is amazing. So yeah.
Dude, tell me about how you met him. Like, how does that power couple come together? How power co-founder come together?
For sure. At university, I founded this hyperloop team. So I founded Hyperlink, and we were building a hyperloop for Elon Musk competition originally. Unfortunately, that got scrapped the year we started, but we ended up competing in other ones called the European Hyperloop Week, and I believe Canadian Hyperloop Week in Toronto, in Waterloo technically. So I founded that back in 2020, I believe. And the team grew from 0 to 30 and then to 70 or 100 kind of general members over 2 years. And on that path, I've reached out to Rayhan to try to get in contact with the Imperial kind of Hyperloop team. I couldn't get in touch with their president, I believe. So I reached out to Rayhan. He was kind of in leadership there as well. We didn't end up working together that much. We kind of crossed paths very briefly, but we had connected on LinkedIn. So 3 years later, when Rayhan was out of university and he was in EF at that point, in EF London, he posted a demo of his new product he's working on, which was text to CAD. So it's something that we've seen in many different players afterwards. He was one of the first ones trying that idea for engineering software. And I found it interesting. I reached out. I just wanted to build kind of connections with other people kind of exploring this space. But fortunately for me, by the time we had met, he and his co-founder at the time from EF had broken up. So I swooped in and then closed the deal.
I love it. What does he work on? What was he working on beforehand? What's his background?
So he's an aerospace engineer. So similar to me, I'm a mechanical engineer. So he spent 4 years at Imperial doing everything across the board. So he spent his time mainly on, apart from actually studying, he spent his time on building rockets. So Imperial has 2 rocketry teams, and he was the lead engineer in one of them, where he had 50 engineers and they launched a rocket in the Mojave Desert under his leadership. And yeah, that's kind of where he noticed the problems that we're now solving. And in a similar fashion, that's kind of where I noticed the problem in my side at Hyperlink. I noticed engineers being much slower than they should be on the hardware side, and the software kind of people were zooming past them.
I love it. It's incredible that you've got this like 2 incredibly talented individuals in both hardware and software working together, and like it's the intersection of both hardware and software. We don't get to see that so often, right?
I'm less software.
Like I think it's epic.
Admittedly, I'm more hardware and the business side. He's more software and hardware.
Love it. Well, we're gonna have to get him on the show because anyone that builds rockets is epic,
Definitely,
right? Like it must be so much. The conversations at the dinner table must be epic.
Absolutely, I'm enjoying my time working with him a lot.
Awesome. Look, I want to understand when it comes to how you position this product. Mm-hmm. How do you sell this, and who do you sell it to, as an example?
Yeah. So this is, to be honest, still a bit of an open question, but I'll tell you my hypothesis and my current thinking. So it's a bit of a new category. I would call it an automation software is probably the closest category, but we don't really have a classic category to put this in. So there's competitors like, for example, Adam.
And so you're quite literally rewriting the playbook for
a bit.
how to sell this.
I think a bit, yes, because some of our competitors, for example, Adam from YC, or I believe GetLeo, maybe not quite GetLeo, but some Zoo, maybe Zoo.dev is more so a better example. They're, for example, building a new CAD software that's AI native, right? So that's kind of puts them in the bucket of CAD broadly. And then some other people are building more kind of AI native simulations, you might call them. So Luminary Cloud, for example, they're essentially building a simulation software that's much quicker to run simulations within because they use AI, not the actual kind of calculation method behind the software. So they're a simulation software, and we are more so an orchestrator. And we're kind of more so in kind of an automation software, a workflow automation software. You can call this anything from Zapier for hardware all the way to the orchestration keyword that's been kind of popping off with agents in general, all the way to, I don't know, like workflow automation, right? So it's a mix of all of them, and I'd call it an automation software. And where we're going is more so an AI engineer, right? So an AI teammate, which we'd hope would be seen as a coworker, not a software, right? I guess nobody really has an answer to whether that's going to be the case in any industry, but I guess that's the vision we're working towards as of now.
Because it's such an emerging space and you're quite literally like not building on top of a classic, like a classical product in the sense. Who do you look for in terms of building a talent team?
Yeah, great question. Um, so we've got a very, very strong conviction that the first employees, and I believe roughly 10, 20, or to be honest, as many as we can, and with the first employees, should have built hardware in the past. So when we're hiring, we're
Like they've
looking,
not just like worked on projects. It's like you've gone and tried to build a hardware company.
not even a company, but more so actually build hardware. And this can be either through at least being in an engineering degree, so having done an engineering degree like a aerospace engineering, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, whichever one. Or actually like building rockets, for example. One of the guys that's starting with us on Monday, he's built rockets with Rayhan in the Imperial team. So we believe that they should have this hands-on experience, because that just gives you that true level of understanding of the problem that somebody who has not built hardware will not have. And I believe that will really kind of be noticeable in the way we build the product, just because we will have the actual experience of how the small things should be working to actually maximize value. So that's one. And then secondly, they all obviously have to be great engineers, software engineers, that is. So our ideal candidate is a hardware engineer who's switched to software. And there's a decent number of those.
Are there a lot of them?
Not a lot. I wouldn't say a lot. There's a decent number. I think, admittedly, probably a lot of the hardware engineers switch to software for better pay, to be honest, and just from maybe more startup-y kind of environments. There's less hardware startups, especially in London, where we're based. So there's not that many. There's a decent amount, but more often than not, if they find us or if we find them, they find us very exciting. So then the sell to join bench is somewhat I want to call it easy, but less hard than maybe if we're like I'll call it normal B2B SaaS.
Do you like being based out of London? Not because obviously you've raised the round here, etc. But do you think that America is the place that actually you'll be able to just accelerate the product?
Common startup wisdom says yes, America's better.
Mm-hmm.
I am still testing that empirically, right? So I'll tell you more about it maybe in 4 weeks when I finish my trip. I have a feeling that we definitely want to raise from here. The seed we have to raise from here, with the lead at least being from America. And I have a feeling that clients will move faster and pay more. That's kind of both from the startup wisdom and from my experience. So we will be exploring kind of being probably split between the two countries. I'm exploring either SF, London, or New York, London. I think both are valid options.
Because you're building software, SF, I assume, feels like the place to be. But if you want to be close to hardware, wouldn't Austin be the place as an example, or New York?
There's a lot of options. So there's a couple options. It's definitely not SF for hardware. So there's a decent amount of like early stage, pre-seed, maybe seed kind of hardware companies here coming out of YC and the kind of similar programs. But as for like larger companies, they're not really here. There's a couple, but not that many. So I'd want to be based close to our clients. And there's competing opinions here, right? Some people say LA. There's Anduril is there. There's a lot of space companies there. Some people say Texas, and some people say broadly East Coast.
Oh, Boston.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm exploring, and for now the options are open. Admittedly, also I believe that New York and London is just much easier to work across time zone wise. So that's also a factor. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, look, like just get on a plane. I'm sure we're gonna have a version of Concorde, and you can just like get to New York in 2.5 hours.
That would be beautiful.
They'll probably be using Bench by that point as well, right?
Exactly. Boom Supersonic should be a client.
I love it. Oh, you know what? Let's get the Boom guys on, and let's make sure we plug Bench during
Beautiful. Let's do that.
Like, how are you finding the Valley? I'd love, like, given that you're there, I know you've only been there a day. What was the sentiment going in? Were you thinking, yes, it's obviously an incredible environment to build something, incredible environment to be around hyper ambitious people. What are you looking to get out of your time there? Because I know it seems like there's this common trend of European founders and European startups kind of going to the Valley for a significant period of time, whether that's a week to 3 months, deeply understanding what they need to, and then coming back, building.
Mm-hmm. So sentiment was definitely positive, because I have a pretty ambitious like circle of founders and kind of generally different kinds of people in London who all have told me that they went to the Valley and they found it much more ambitious. So coming from an already ambitious circle, they found the Valley already much more ambitious already. So I definitely had a positive sentiment, but I am an engineer, so I want to test this pragmatically. So my hypothesis is that it will be better, but I'll definitely I'll tell you an actual response in a couple of weeks. What I'm looking from here is a couple of things. Basically, building up the initial network. So my main question is, should I sell more to America or to the UK and Europe, as for like clients wise? So I'm definitely trying to talk to as many kind of hardware people in here and kind of checking the sentiment in terms of buying the software. And then the secondary goal is just building relations with investors. Just because, for the next round, we obviously want to raise from here, so we need that baseline. And we're lucky. We're here with EWAR, our kind of our initial investor, our kind of the accelerator we're part of, and we're kind of like a co-working house where we have investors coming twice per day to our house. So it's a nice way to kind of build the network quickly.
Just inbound.
Yeah.
It's nice and easy.
Yeah.
I'd love to talk about the seed for a hot sec. I know you covered a lot of it on ETS, and I think it's great that like you get that distribution, and we can sort of bounce between shows. It's freaking awesome, right? It's like you guys have got your own media network to talk shop. When you're going through that seed process, do you just take money where you want to take it, or do you think about the individuals that want to invest in you and think like where can they add value? Obviously, from the other side, we're hopefully getting a lot more VCs on to talk about how they allocate that capital and they deploy it and what they look for. But I think the conversation around how you look at it and go, actually, maybe that's not the right fit. This is the right fit. I'd love to just hear thoughts.
It's a good question. I mean, I definitely look at who's giving me the money, and there's obviously a couple different things I look at. And I think the main thing is ideally my investors are both interested in hardware and software. Or at least software for hardware, and that's a bit more niche. But ideally, it's a bit of both, where they should be understanding the specificity of the hardware industry in general, the fact that it moves generally a bit more slowly, the fact that it's a bit more capital intensive, and the fact that it's kind of a bit more legacy as an industry still. So I definitely need that understanding, just because if people are expecting me to have 100 mil ARR by seed, that's just not going to happen, right? It might happen by B and C, and might have a billion by D, right? But 100 mil by seed is not going to happen, and we need people to understand that. So I believe that looking for these kinds of investors is basically going to yield better results with better intros, better understanding, and better advice from them. We're not necessarily looking for advice from VCs. We want them to generally leave us alone and do our own thing. Let us do our own thing. But targeted specific advice in specific areas is always great.
I heard this one phrase. I can't remember who it was from. It was probably from the US, knowing what they're like. A VC is just a gigantic context window for your startup, right? It's like they should understand deeply the problem that you're trying to solve. And when you run into that issue and you come to them, they should be able to click their fingers and go, right, this is the problem. This is how you need to fix. This is who you need to talk to fix it.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, definitely. They have the widest, broadest context. It's not that deep usually, but it's very broad. And I think that's how you utilize them best.
I've got to ask, what was the best question you got asked by your VCs?
Best question I was asked.
The one that really sat, that made you think and go, right, this is an interesting one. This was hard to answer.
I kind of pushed away all the investor chats by now, fortunately. Let me think. It's probably about defensibility. So basically, why won't the big players build this? And basically the answer we came up with is they can't orchestrate outside of their ecosystem, and they're just inherently slow movers. They have huge code bases where innovation in any form takes them ages, and they usually just don't win. They usually just grow by acquisition. That's probably one of them. There's been a couple probably, but that's the one I remember best.
Who asked?
Honestly, most. This was asked by most.
Most?
Yeah, by most. Yeah, by all the biggest ones in our round, definitely. Because it's an obvious question, right?
Martin.
It's an obvious question, I think. And yeah, it's a fair question to ask. The incumbents in the industry are huge, and they have most of the market. So yeah.
Well, and when we think about the incumbents, are we thinking about like an Andronil as an example?
No, so incumbents is more so like Dassault Systems, PTC. These are the big kind of software for hardware players that are essentially an oligopoly of 5 companies.
And you're essentially trying to disrupt that oligopoly.
So it depends, right? We'll see how it goes. But for now, we're friendly with most of them, and we're kind of integrating with them, and we're more of a partnership. Just because we can enhance them and they can enhance us, so it's a mutual relationship, and I think it's going to stay that way. We generally don't want to build our own CAD system. We generally don't want to build our own simulation software. We'll see how it goes. This might change, but for now, that it's not something we're looking at. So for now, we are trying to build a new category, like an orchestrator category, and that's more so going to enhance every other piece of software rather than replace it.
Martin, this has been an absolute pleasure. San Fran's an incredibly intense place. So I'm going to let you get back to being intense with the most hyper ambitious people on the planet. Dude, I will see you at the end of these 4 weeks or 4 months. We can have a catch up there.
Definitely. Let's do that. Viraj, thank you so much. Have a great day.